What is going on, you guys? It is your man, MorganMan. Thank you so much for tuning back in to the MorganMan Sports Podcast. You can find me here on Soundcloud.com, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Guys, today's episode of eTuesday is going to be an electrifying one. We are recapping the Minnesota Home Series weekend event, and we are also previewing the Paris Legion Home Series weekend event. So without any further delay, let's go to get straight into today's action. Alright guys, so at the top of the show right there, you did hear me right. We are recapping and previewing both home series that are coming up right here. This is going to be 2 weeks in a row with some Call of Duty League action, and I am excited because from what we got this past weekend, oh boy, the Paris Legion one is going to be a banger. So, to kick off the Minnesota Rokkr Home Series weekend event, you had the Toronto Ultra taking on the LA Gorillas, where the Gorillas finally got a win over the Toronto Ultra, 3-2, so that was our first Game 5 of the series, or for really the entire weekend. Next up, you had the Atlanta FaZe taking on the Seattle Surge with a little bit of controversy right here. So, what I mean by controversy, Seattle Surge was totally dominating the Atlanta FaZe, pretty much. They were just all up in their grill, like being nasty, pretty much. And then there was a technical reset that took like 30 minutes, I think it was. And then all of a sudden, Atlanta FaZe came back and won 3-2 over the Seattle Surge. Everybody thinks it, Atlanta, paid the refs or paid to get that to happen or just paid to get it Seattle Surge iced. And of course, Celium has to, troll the fans or the doubter saying, GG Seattle, and had like a chilled face, like the emoji face, and it was ice all over it, trolling those kind of people right there. So I don't think it was honestly a rigged segment right there. It was just something going on with the broadcast, because the broadcast in itself was kind of not up to standard for what the Call of Duty League should be. So honestly, I don't think it was rigged like everybody thinks it was. The match that kind of everybody's been looking forward to, and that's the Florida Mutineers taking on the Chicago Huntsmen, Pristini's old team. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. And the Florida Mutineers surprised the entire world by defeating the Chicago Huntsmen, the revamped Chicago Huntsmen, with Pristini, 3-2. And Florida just killed them in almost every kind of game mode, pretty much. And the ones that Chicago has won, it was very close, like down to the wire, like with a couple points left. And it makes me think, wow, with the Florida Mutineers having all these coaching, or not coaching, but player roles and changes and everything, this one right here is definitely the right one, because it won them their second home series. Spoiler alert, but yes. For your marquee matchup that Friday, you had the Dallas Empire taking on the Minnesota Rokkr, where the Minnesota Rokkr fell to the Empire 3-1. And God Alexis, I tell you, man, he is not on cue no more. The rest of the team is really just not. And I just don't know what to say for the Minnesota Rokkr. For Saturday, you have the Florida Mutineers taking on the LA Gorillas to go on to Championship Sunday, where the Florida Mutineers won in dominant fashion, 3-1 in the LA Gorillas, now sending the Gorillas to elimination bracket. Atlanta FaZe also has beaten the Dallas Empire 3-2 to go on the Championship Sunday. And FaZe was questionable right here, because at times they just looked absolutely sloppy. And everybody's thinking, wow, what is going on with FaZe? I mean, yes, they won, but how? How did they win? I mean, yes, they are reverse sweeping everybody, but this is not the phase that we're used to. So something needs to change. So we got our first 3-0 right here. That was my phone right there. We got our first 3-0, and that was the Chicago Huntsmen eliminating the Toronto Ultra. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. The Toronto Ultra was eliminated by the Chicago Huntsmen in dominant fashion of 3-0. And the biggest shocker of them all, the Seattle Surge finally gets a W on the board that is non-LA Gorillas, and that was against the Minnesota Rokkr in elimination bracket. So, what's next for the Seattle Surge after winning against a really good team, but also losing, really losing against another big team? What's next? Well, we're going to find out against the Dallas Empire. But before we get to that, you have the LA Gorillas, like the Seattle Surge, shocking the world by defeating the Chicago Huntsmen 3-2. The LA Gorillas were very dominant in S&D, and I'll tell you, Huntsmen, there's problems. There's still problems going on. I guarantee you probably now the Envoy will be the next one to leave, get benched for another player. I guarantee it. So just keep that in mind. And honestly, for everybody that's saying Chicago Huntsmen is a top 3 team, I'm going to say no to that now. Because Huntsmen, you're losing to, you lost to a very great team in Florida Mutineers, but it was close. But you lost to a bad team. You've lost to a few bad teams. And everybody still considers you the best. I don't think so. I think Dallas Empire takes your spot right there. Because the Dallas Empire has proved themselves worthy. But I still don't really like them that much. Atlanta FaZe is really the top tier team in this scenario. So going back to the Seattle Surge taking on the Dallas Empire, the Seattle Surge could not keep their momentum going by defeating the Minnesota Rokkr. They lose to the Dallas Empire 3-0 in dominant fashion. So now to Championship Sunday right here, the LA Gorillas took Atlanta FaZe to the edge by Atlanta FaZe 3-2'd the LA Gorillas, eliminating them from making it to the finals. The Florida Mutineers 3-2 the Dallas Empire, and Dallas Empire, man, I tell you, there is heat going on that roster. I am here to tell you that there is heat. Clayster, Crimsix, Hugh, Shotzi, Illy, I mean, boy, they were heated. And whenever I say heated, I mean, they were so PO'd that they just grabbed their webcam camera and just, covered up and just unplugged from the USB. They were so mad, and you could see Clayster shaking his hands and yelling in the mic. It was so funny, but yes, there are problems going on with the Dallas Empire now. So for CDL game day on Championship Sunday, you have the Florida Mutineers dominating the Atlanta FaZe 3-1. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, 3-1. Florida Mutineers are your Minnesota Rokkr Home Series champions. And Atlanta FaZe could not complete the reverse sweep. They couldn't just complete anything. Minus an S&D of a 6-1 win over the Mutineers in the S&D. And that was on Arkloff Peak. One of their best S&D maps. So, what's next for Atlanta FaZe before we get to the Florida Mutineers? Atlanta FaZe they need to tighten up. It seems like they're better whenever they need to break a hard point and capture the remaining points rather than holding. They need to reverse that and become better at holding than breaking. They need to win those one-on-one gunfights, and just win your one-on-ones and protect the objective. If you hold it for a full 60, that's great. But if you can at least hold it for the 35 of the 60, you're doing great. You're winning matches doing that right there. Of course, and I know, you got to have somebody go contest the next point on hard point. But, holding at least 35 to 40 out of the 60 is pretty much a guarantee that you're going to win that match. So now for Florida Mutineers, they are 2-time champions, and they are in the category of elites with the Atlanta FaZe, Dallas Empire, and the Chicago Huntsmen. So which out of these 4 teams would you consider number 1, especially after this weekend's performance? Me personally, my number 1 is still Atlanta FaZe, because they've completed a lot of reverse sweeps and they've dug themselves out of a hole. So I'm still considering them number 1 despite the loss against Florida. Number 2 would have to be Florida, because Florida is just a god tier team. Number 3 would be the Dallas Empire, and number 4 would be the Chicago Huntsmen.